One sec. All right. Hi, everybody, and welcome to the February 2024 Dover Trails and Recreation Committee meeting. I will call the meeting to order at 6:31 p.m. Um, any public comments tonight?
Uh,
No.
are we going to be given the opportunity to add to the agenda?
Yeah. I mean, I think it kind of depends on the item, but that's coming up next.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. No public comments, additions, or changes to the agenda.
So I think we need to have a small discussion about a culvert washout in the Dover Town Forest.
Okay. Um, Well, yeah, let's approve the minutes and we'll put that right before we talk about Horace Hill Trail names. Are you okay with that?
I was wondering if we could flip the Horace Hill discussion with the Ridge discussion. I think the Ridge discussion could influence the discussions of Horace Hill. It's my personal opinion.
Okay. Yeah. Uh, okay. In the future, Mike, just so you know, Matt is the representative from Stump Jumpers, so like he's the one who's supposed to be. I mean, you're here to make public comment and things like that, but in terms of like agenda items, things like that, like let's run that stuff through Matt just for the sake of him being the representative from the Stump Jumpers.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
thank you. Okay, so we'll swap those items and I will add an item for the culvert issue on in the Dover Town Forest before we have the Ridge project update. Okay, can I have a motion to approve the minutes from the January 9th meeting? Julia makes a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Tommy, any discussion? All in favor? Patricia, Kristen, any? There you
I'm
go.
good. Sorry, good about that.
Okay. All right, so we'll add an agenda item to discuss a culvert issue in the Dover Town Forest. Mike, do you want to let us know what it is that's happening?
So Matt and I were out in the Dover Town Forest last week, and we couldn't help but notice that a culvert that was replaced 2 or 3 years ago by our roads crew had already washed out again. Now, this culvert has washed out a few times before. Obviously, it's washed out again. I think the public should be aware if anyone's going to go down, hike down there. I mean, the snowmobilers are definitely affected by this culvert being washed out. And when it comes to Travis's attention, which I'm sure you'll make him aware of, we
Yep.
would like to be involved in helping him possibly solve the problem down there.
Okay, on the main trail, like on the main entrance trail, Mike?
Yeah, it's the main trail of
Yep,
the Rice
Rice Hill
Hill,
Road.
and
Bryce
it's
Hill Trail at the bottom,
Okay,
the big one, right
okay,
a little bit below where the ski glades come in, the furthest out ski glade. It's like a
okay.
3 foot culvert.
All right, I'll get the word out to Travis, and I will, recommend that he reach out to Matt or to Mike, who's, or does it matter?
doesn't matter.
That's
I
it.
deal
That's
with
a matter, Mike.
does not matter.
Okay, okay. So I'll get that word out to Travis on that, and have him reach out to you. Okay.
Thank you.
Yep. All set with that. Okay. So we'll move on to the Ridge project update. Tom, you want to?
Sure. Yeah, I just wanted to give an update to the Trails Committee because obviously it's been something we've been speaking about for several years, and we had a fairly impactful meeting between myself, 2 members of the United States Forest Service, and the town, Eric, Andy, and Selectwoman Sarah Shippey. And the format that the Forest Service has kind of always envisioned in terms of who would be the GC and managing the overall project. It was decided by Selectwoman Sarah Shippey that being that they won't deviate from that format, that the town will not be supporting the project financially. So we will be moving forward with our normal source of funding, grants, and donations to make that project happen. Just wanted to give that update to the committee.
Okay, Mike Purcell, you had your hand raised?
Yes. I was talking to Tim Shannon. He was, when I was at the club working, and he mentioned that the actual Ridge Trail part has been sort of absorbed by you guys in the project there. So that swamp remediation or whatever, that's falling to you guys, and the town has nothing to do with that, or the town's
So Mike, can I answer, Eric?
Yep.
So that's actually not technically an SOVTA project. That has been deemed as the best route for our section of the VIII, which I think you're familiar with that. That's the Massachusetts to Canadian border for a mountain bike trail in the state of Vermont, similar to the Catamount Trail or the Long Trail. So that is not technically an SOVTA project, although we will be tasked once it's built. We will be the ones maintaining the entire southern Vermont section of VIII Trail, including that. And I believe that that the VIII committee with the Forest Service for that swamp determined to do a workaround for there. But I know they had like a big informational meeting this year at Mount Snow. And I could get you in touch with them, or you could certainly reach out to them for.
I'd be interested in that, because even though I'm biker weirdo, I really don't care about attaching it to the Velomont, because it's not, it's something that's benefits the two communities before a bike even goes up there. It can certainly be worked in conjunction, but it sort of defers the immediate addressing of that area that we've been after for years before the Velomont was even created. So, it was separate from the SOVTA thing, and I'm kind of concerned that it's going to get stalled even longer because it's part of some massive longer project.
Yeah, well, that actually, and just to be very clear, it's completely outside of SOVTA. We have no insight. We have insight, but we have no say. We have no planning. That's not our project. There was a large pool of federal money that has to be used, I believe by 2026, that this VIII committee, most of them happen to be Northern Vermonters, was able to attach themselves onto. And that's how they were. So this will not be delayed. This is going to happen probably a lot quicker than the actual Ridge project we're talking about, because they have to use that federal money. And that's how they got the Forest Service to kind of fact track that. But just again, to be clear, completely separate from SOVTA. We were only asked to be the maintainer of this trail once it's built. This trail will also come down to connect into the Stratton Town Forest, which is our other zone project, which we obviously maintain that as well.
Right, but what I'm getting at is this sort of existed aside from all this bike stuff. And while I'm like super biker boy and interested in that big long project, they should just take advantage of what the towns were prepared to do to just fix the swamp, and then they can do their little happy thing. So I'm going to contact the ranger again, because that's not the way. I mean, it's just stalled again by another agency. Or I don't know. I think that's pretty. Go ahead. Or go ahead, Eric. You call.
You're on mute,
Julia?
Eric. Yeah, Tom, can you explain to me? I don't really understand the difference here. There's the Villamont Trail, which is the Ridge Trail. Does that include the connection back down to Handle Road? Or is that something separate?
So Eric, if I can answer. So Julia, it's pretty interesting. And again, completely separate organization. I don't know the history exactly of when it started, but all I know is that the Villamont is an organization. Okay. It does have some Vermont Mountain Bike Association chapters as chairs on their board, members of their board rather. But this is going to be a state, Massachusetts to the Canadian border mountain biking trail with huts. Okay. So they have a website, they have a lot of information, and they determined, and that the best route to connect south of us to north of us, okay, was that ridge coming over through Mount Snow down into the Stratton Town Forest. So, we had zero input in planning it. Go ahead. But if that helps you though, Julia, that's.
It does, but my follow-up question, okay, so I understand that that's that ridge and that the National Forest is working with these folks and there's funding behind it to do work on that trail. We had also and we've now built the little parking lot on Handle Road to connect up to us up to that ridge that goes, is that impacted by this, or what's the part that the town is not?
Okay, Tommy, do you mind if I respond?
Please,
Sorry.
go right ahead.
Okay, so it's it's not just that, we made the decision, hey, we're not involved. It's typically when we spend that so that the piece that Tommy's talking about with the United States Forest Service and the Ridge project that we talk about, that is the piece that goes from that parking lot up to the ridge. Okay, that's the piece that we've been talking about for a number of years here, and we've had many, many meetings about and many, many discussions about. It was the general consensus, in discussions with the select board, that because of the amount of money and because of the amount of, because we wouldn't be involved in how those dollars were spent and things like that, just the protocol of how our 1% money is spent, that this is not something that we would probably be able to fund. So VTA will be moving forward with the design phase and the RFP and all of those things with the United States Forest Service, and we will be here to provide any feedback or assistance that they request.
One last
Julia.
question. What does that have to do? So, fine. And so VTA is involved in that, but it's the National Forest people and the Villamont. They're also, the funding is going to now come from there.
Congressional funding. That's actually congressional funding that was set aside for projects like these nationally that the Villamont was able to tap into. So they are completely separate from SOVTA. Again, the only thing we have to do with that is we were asked to do the maintenance perpetually of that piece of trail in the southern Vermont area. But in terms of going to the Forest Service or finding that funding, that had nothing to do with us. It's just another organization that will be, creating a project, managing a project within our geographic area.
All right, because I'm trying to get back on. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. I think I understand.
Hey,
Julie,
Mike
you can
Garber.
reach out to me, any other time, and I could get you more information or put you in touch with some of the folks over there.
Okay, can I just ask what, or say one more thing? To me, if I understand this correctly, this is actually a good thing because while we may not be, we, the town of Dover, may not be directing this work, it's still going to happen and there's funding behind it. Is that a fair statement?
Well, the congressional funding is for the Villamont Trail, correct?
Correct, but that was a part of the project. You know, we've been talking for the past few years, and that was a part of it. So I kind of agree with Julia. I'm excited that that was taken off the plate of the project, because now I don't have to go find grants for that part of the project, which was going to be a very expensive one.
Yep. Okay,
So-
Mike Garber, you had your hand
sorry.
raised?
Yes, a couple questions. So the portion of trail that goes from the parking lot through Bears Crossing up to the ridge has some or no Dover properties involved with it.
None, actually. So we have an easement for the Jacob Brown property, which is where the parking lot sits. It sits on our 50-foot right of way, as well as the easement we got from Jacob Brown to the south. To the north, we have the 50-foot right of way, and then an easement for the Bears Crossing property to do an additional piece of parking lot for later in the future. In the middle of that, there is it 50 feet, Tommy, I think, or it's not very much.
It's the
But there's
same
a-
size as your easements, Eric.
Yeah, so it's another 50 feet in the middle piece of the United States Forest Service land that comes down to a very small 50-foot wide point and meets up with our 50-foot right of way on Handle Road. So no, there is no town of Dover property or Dover owned, Bears Crossing or Jacob Brown property actually included on the trails piece of it.
Okay, so with that being said, is the parking lot finished or is SoVTA still going to do things to the parking lot to expand it? Or
So the parking lot was actually something that was left on our side because our list, because we have, the town owns the easements for those, and then we own those 50-foot right of ways. So what's happening with the parking lot right now, basically what we wanted to accomplish was to get a few spots off of the road so that as SoVTA or the ologists are working on this project, they have a place to pull in and park without being parked directly on the side of Handle Road. So the parking lot went in this past summer. I know there was some delays with the rain and all those things, but the parking lot itself is there. On the Jacob Brown side, we still have plans this summer to install the conifer trees and boulders for, to make it much prettier than what it is now. That's always been a part of the landscaping plan. Myself and Andy had a meeting with a contingent of Bears Crossing owners to discuss the same exact thing. So eventually when that piece on the north is built, that will have similar landscaping around it. And then Andy and myself are in the process of filling out a change of use form for the United States Forest Service to give us access to, it's a 25 by 50-foot section in the middle where it would be the same thing where the trailhead is, but we just need to get that permission to use that 25 by 50-foot section of United States Forest Service land to finish the middle of that parking lot. Does that make sense?
Yeah, now from that parking lot up to the ridge, has SoVTA, Tommy, established the trail going all the way up? And has any work been done on it yet?
There was a bit of work from our executive director, maybe 2.5 years ago, where he was flagging for concept maps, and there's quite a bit of planning put into it. That did stop when we started trying to figure out the best way forward, with the town and the United States Forest Service. So, there's a general conceptual idea that we're using for the RFP. And that'll be improved upon.
And so who do you have to answer to, or is it just you can get in there and start doing the work?
We have to answer to the United States. It's their land, so they're the call them the owner, the developer, right, for lack of a better term, and we're the GC. So, we're going to manage the project, do the hiring and, that sort of thing. But we have to check in with them and we have to let them know and we have to see if everything's okay with them every step of the way.
And just a follow up. So it's between you, the United States Forestry Service, nobody from the town and nobody from this committee can really get in your way going forward.
From a technical standpoint, no, but this committee's had a lot of input throughout the years and the town has as well. So, we're going to continue to share information and ask for opinions and that sort of thing. But yes, once the project starts, we'll be working with the Forest Service.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Mike Purcell.
Yeah, to be clear, the Ridge Trail itself has been a U.S. Forest Service trail that we've managed to keep open and gather approval from the Forest Service. And any attempt to repair it or address the swamp has been stifled by one group after another, including Jim Barnes, where it was a legal issue, the change of the various forest rangers, the introduction of the Soviet's backcountry skiing. It was, made separate from that backcountry portion, only to be usurped again by a different organization, when in fact, the two towns have the money to build the damn bridge to go across the thing so people can use it on their feet all the time. And so I think it's pretty foolhardy to give away that involvement to another organization that is dealing with something that goes from Massachusetts to Canada, when we're just looking at about something the towns could pay to have somebody fixed so people can use it all summer long on their feet, in a very short period of time. Period.
Tommy.
Mike, I don't disagree with you, but it's not ours to give or take. And it's certainly not this body or the town of Wilmington or SOVTA or anybody that can give or take it or really even worth having this argument with, because it's the Forest Service land. So, I think that's a good argument to make with them, but in terms of this body here, we have zero control. And, it just doesn't, it's not our fight.
Well, it is our fight in terms of, we're relinquishing, it was the town's involvement in sort of a much larger part of a Wyndham regional plan that supported the benefits that now we weren't, since we stayed out of your hair, we kind of lost control up there or lost participation. So I don't know that they're even hearing our voices. And so I'm trying to make it clear to the people in this body that don't have the history of the resource that's being, put off again. And I'm certainly going to contact Martina because she knows who I am, and I think the town should be concerned about not just Dover, but Wilmington and the Chamber of Commerce, that, this resource is just escaping us once again. And I think they should know that. And you're right. I mean, but it's not that we can decide that per se, but there's certainly a number of people here that aren't able to differentiate between the Ridge Trail project, which is really backcountry skiing, and Belmont. That's all overlapping, and that's why I'm sort of being picky about it, because I don't think people have been up there, so they don't know the difference between the two. And it was separate for the longest time, and I don't think there was anybody to fill us in it. We lost the ability to participate till now.
Yeah, I think I'll just kind of reiterate what Tommy said, I mean, it's not our land, it's not Dover land, and it's not SOBTA land. We didn't relinquish, like the town was not.
But we were involved in the terms of it wouldn't even be open had we not been there to participate with the Forest Service to begin with, because a lot of these trails are going to be abandoned, and we participated and demonstrated that it was of significant value. The fact that it's even open is a result of our participation in the past.
Julia?
This is a question for Tom. Is there a risk to your mind that the VIII will prioritize things further north or further south from us, and we might get pushback per Mike Purcell's concern? Or and the second part of the question is, I'm presuming they're going to keep you and SOBTA in the loop in terms of their planning and all that kind of stuff, so we know when they're planning to work on our section of the Ridge Trail.
Yeah, I don't, again, they had a very open, publicly warned meeting in our town at Mount Snow. I know Andy was there. I don't know if any other members of the select board were there, but they've been very forthcoming. So, it hasn't been done in secret. Are they going to focus more keenly on a northern? It's a state to state trail, so it wouldn't be the VIII Trail if they don't do the whole thing. And from my understanding, again, this is going to not just be a mountain biking trail for only mountain bike use, but it's going to be widened out. I mean, I can't imagine it's not going to connect into Mount Snow. That's because I would think it would have to at some point to get back down. So, I mean, our community is going to have a connection to it, and it's actually something that's going to get done. I was on the Ridge Trail for quite a few hours on Saturday, and it's pretty much closing in. So I do think it's something's going to be done up there. But yeah, Julie, I don't think I'll be privy to any more information than you. What they provide. And again, our only involvement is that we were approached by their organization to be the stewards of the trail once it's built.
Mike Garber?
I know that somebody here said that they were going to reach out to Martina about the VIII. With Mike Purcell, was that you that said you were going to do that? So Mike, can you ask them what the user groups are going to be involved when that portion of the project is completed? I know there's no motorized vehicles up there, or at least no snow. I know that, but is it open to everything else? And are those people all protected? So I was hoping you could report back to us at the next meeting just to tell us what they say.
Patricia?
In addition to that, what about e-bikes? Or, not,
E-bikes
Motorcycles.
are permitted by the National Forest.
okay, good. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions, comments on this particular topic? Okay. All right, so we will go ahead and move into the agenda item about the Horace Hill Trail names. I'll pull up the map here just so you guys know what it is that I'm talking about. Can you guys see my cursor when I move it?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, so based on the recommendations you all made for trail names, I will go ahead and let you know what the select board chose for names for the trails. And the only thing that hasn't been settled on yet, because I didn't know if Mike and Matt and the Stump Jumper guys had anything else they wanted to name the Vast Trail, but that currently is just called the Vast Trail, and that's this green one over here. Okay. So the red trail will be called the Way In. The dark green, this lower loop that is existing and was worked on by SOBTA and then again by our trails company, that's going to be called Sap Bucket. Orange in the middle here, everybody knows that road that kind of goes through the lower third of the property there. That'll be Earl Farm Road, named after the previous landowner. Again, light green, Vast Trail down here. light red, which is actually pink on this, or this trail, this one here. So kind of orangey. That's going to be called Cannonball Run. That's the advanced mountain bike trail. Blue is Wide Open. That's the intermediate mountain bike trail. And then pink is this multi-use climbing, multi-directional trail. That's going to be called Play Nice. This purple connector trail here will be called Short, and this purple connector trail down here will be called Sweet. Okay, and that's based on the recommendations that you guys made to the select board, and then were compiled and presented to them, and that's what they decided to go with. Okay, so just a little update on that. Okay, any questions there? Awesome, thank you guys for your help with that. So we will move along.
Eric, question. Just
Yes, sir.
all those white lines with the disc hole golf?
Yep,
Was it? Okay,
yep,
just checking.
yeah. Okay,
I
Yep.
think I have a question. Horace Hill, who's gonna maintain all of that when the trees fall down?
so literally we're about to have that conversation, Mike. It's on the agenda. Okay. So, the Horace Hill maintenance. So Tommy asked for this to be on the agenda tonight. So what I'll do is give an update about what it is that we have planned in terms of maintenance, and then you can provide any
Eric,
comments. Yes.
are you skipping
Oh, sorry. I
Crosstown
am
Parking Lot?
skipping. There
Sorry,
was a
just
request
trying
for,
to-
that's, you keep me in line and I appreciate it. Thank you, Shannon. There was a request for an agenda item to discuss the Crosstown Parking Lot. So Tommy?
Yes. So the Crosstown Trail parking lot, the egress to the Crosstown has been blocked in. We didn't have too many snowstorms, but it was blocked in. So the gate, Eric,
Okay.
so it's a safety issue that concerns Mount Snow, also a concern of ours. So, if we need to open that gate to get a sled in, a truck in, whatever, we did go ahead. We had a machine for a different project. So I believe last week, maybe a week and a half ago, we went and cleared that. But if you could just let, the road crew know, that if they can keep that clear, that that's important.
Okay. Yeah, thanks for the heads up on that. I didn't realize that had happened. So I will get the word out to those guys when I speak to them about the culvert in the town forest. Okay, does that work for you?
Thank you.
Yep. All right. Now we will move into the Horace Hill maintenance discussion. So what I'll do is just Mike
Mike
Purcell.
Purcell had a question. Yeah.
Just
Yep.
only it applies to the Crosstown parking lot as well as when we get to Horace Hill. And it has to do with, are you doing winter maintenance for fat bikes? Are you grooming? Will that be part of your gig? And you can
It is.
address
Yeah, we are doing full winter maintenance. We are grooming.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So the Horace Hill maintenance. It was requested of our builders for both the disc golf and for the trails that, as the project comes to a finish, that they provide us with their recommendation in terms of required maintenance for those trails and disc golf holes, on a yearly basis, on a, bi-yearly basis, every 5 years, to give us an explanation of what it is that they think would need to happen on that property to maintain those trails and those disc golf holes. So they're in the process of working on those for us. Obviously you're going to have your general, trails maintenance needs, right? So the plan right now is to organize at least 2, if not more, community trails days on the property to address some of those issues, especially like spring cleanup, fall cleanup and things like that, to make sure that as snow falls, the everything is good to go for the winter. And then additionally, we have a budget item, in our budget to cover repairs and things for trails throughout the year on all of our properties. So if a problem did arise that required, paid maintenance, then the plan is to use that line item, and either put it out to bid or figure out how it's going to be addressed from there. Okay. As far as a tree coming down, we plan on, we would have that taken care of, whether it would be the maintenance crew or, someone, you know, to take care of that for us, but it's all, I mean, we're prepared to provide maintenance for the property because we paid for it, right? So that was the plan all along. You know, but Tommy, did you have questions or comments? I know you had requested the item.
Yes, I do. And this is not coming from SOBTA. This is more as a tax-paying citizen of Dover. With the experience that I now have and that my organization has managing a similar size property in Stratton as well as Crosstown. Okay. We're also going to be managing the Stratton Rec Center. Mountain bike trails, especially the multi-use, family-friendly that the town created so beautifully and put a major investment into. I just want to say to this committee that I think it is way more cumbersome and burdensome than right now we're going into this looking at. It's not a random tree. You know, it's trees constantly with the storms we get, with the weather we get. If we have anything close to last summer, there's washouts all over the place. Okay, berms get washed out, trails get washed out, and that's just the minimum maintenance. Okay, that has really become an absolute full-time job. On top of that, is the town looking to leaf blow? Are they looking to keep leaf blow them, you know, during the autumn? Are they looking to groom them during the winter for fat biking? You know, like this to me, if the answer is yes to all those, and if, you know, you believe what I'm saying about what it really takes, I don't see how a couple community trail days and then reacting. And again, I'm just saying, like, reacting because we have money in the budget when something happens is the right way to protect our investment as the town of Dover. I just think it's a much, much, much bigger issue that we're not having a conversation about.
Okay, additional comments? Patricia?
I think that, so, you know, I get all the emails from VTA and all the stuff that's going on in Stratton. But if people aren't actually members of a certain group, then they're not going to know that there's a community day. And I feel like there's a lot of people out there that would be like, yeah, I'll do the trails and pick up sticks or rake or you know, just do trail maintenance. I don't know if legally you can have a Sawyer come for insurance purposes, but I feel like if it was a regular thing, you know, like every Tuesday or whatever, yeah, if it was more, it could be that. Sorry, I don't know if that contributed.
Tommy?
Yeah, Patricia, I just say that we do have a large member base, and you know, you're obviously seeing those Instagram posts and emails, and even with all of that in our community where people are very dependent upon working weekends, we find it extremely difficult. You know, which is why we've had to pivot a little bit to rely upon those community days. We do get them. It's always the same 4 or 5 people. You know, it's always the same 4 or 5 people to coach kids sports and show up for the ski program, that type of thing. But that's been a challenge for us as well, even with the amount of time we put into, you know, posts and things like that.
Oh well, I'm sad to hear that it hasn't worked out like that because, well, anyway, they're all on days that I work.
You know, so as I stated, I mean, this is the plan for maintenance. I mean, obviously we're prepared to pivot should that plan not be working out, right? Like, we're not going to spend the money on this property and then let it go to hell, just you know, to spite ourselves. Like, we will make sure that the property is maintained, and if it doesn't work the way that we intended to, then we're prepared to pivot to make it work. Julia?
Okay, again for Tom. Do you have a a proposal or an idea for what would work better, or should we see how the community days work and then pivot as?
I don't, Julia. I just know that it's February and this project's opening this spring, I believe. So any project that I would have that would be opening up this spring, I would have a much more comprehensive maintenance plan. And I'm not, again, I'm not trying to be combative. I'm just, as a Dover resident, I just think that there should be a lot more thought and energy put into the maintenance of this $250,000 project.
That input is appreciated, Tommy. I'll have a conversation with my designers, and just make sure that, we're prepared for what it is that we've built up there. And have a plan to address these things. That, again, we're not going to let the property deteriorate. And if we need to make adjustments or pay someone in there to come in and make repairs, then we're prepared to do that. So, we'll continue on the path. We appreciate the input. Does anybody else have comments or questions or input on this topic? Julia first and then Matt.
Okay, just to recollect, there's still a little bit of work that needs to be done before its grand opening. We're presuming we're gonna have a grand opening sometime late spring or something like that, early June or something like that. Would it be a good idea when the grand opening happens to already have on the calendar the volunteer cleanup for the fall, so that you can start to get right at the outset interest and people can start planning for that?
Yeah. Yeah. And another thing to consider here is that eventually, as we expand on these projects and things, one of the recommendations that came out of the Weston and Sampson plan was to have a Trails and Recreation Department, which would actually be overseeing the town forest, the Horace Hill, the rest of our properties. So, eventually this would not be, while economic development money would be, kind of getting these projects off the ground in terms of maintenance and things like that. The idea is that, in the very near future, we would have a department that dealt exclusively with that, per the recommendation of Weston and Sampson. Okay. And that's just, again, that's not, oh, this is going to happen next year. It's not in the budget, but it is part of the long-term plan. Kristen Mumford.
Just a real kind of granular item. I get that volunteer days maybe aren't that well attended. Could we consider maybe putting up some kind of a sign that says, hey, if the trail needs to be maintained, if there's limbs down, I don't know, however you define it, to report to, I don't know if it's Travis, Department of Public Works, however we define who's going to be responsible for the maintenance until we get the Parks and Rec, department.
Okay. Thank you, Kristen. Mike? Purcell? No, Purcell.
Yes, sorry. No, I mean, I think, Tommy's right in that, there's a lot to be done quite often. And normally most users take care of the small things by themselves. But the good news and the bad news is VTA has got a pretty big plate and it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So they're going to be trying to manage and take care of a lot of things, including at some point, the stuff that's going up to the ridge. So some pivoting may involve some group or organization at some point, because I don't think VTA is going to be able to handle all the maintenance that they need to do at Stratton, Crosstown, et cetera, et cetera. I think it's going to be a pretty big ask for them to take care of. And so that Parks and Rec for our own properties is probably going to be some kind of consideration that we'll need to consider.
Thanks, Mike. Sorry, Matt, I forgot to come back to you, and then Tommy, I'll get you right after. Does that work?
Yeah,
Matt,
I just wanted to agree with Tommy. I work at Stratton, where Sinuosity also built the trails, and They spend probably about a month before they open, doing maintenance just from sitting over the winter, and then probably 2 days a week all summer on them. So it is going to be a big project. There's a lot to consider there. And with community days, that's great. I'll be there. I like doing that stuff, but it also is hard. With our snowmobile club, we have 1,000 members, and we have 5 people show up to build a bridge. So just agreeing
Thanks,
with
Matt.
Tom.
Tommy? Oh, sorry. Were you done? I'm sorry.
Yep.
Okay, Tommy, go ahead.
Yeah. To Matt's point, that's interesting he said that, because 2 days a week is about what it takes full time to maintain a project. And while Eric, I'm not challenging, I completely understand your plan. I do think it's reactionary in terms of, okay, there's a problem. Now we're gonna have to solve it. That could take days. That could mean that trails are shut down for days. So, I do think that finding, some organization or some possibly, if the roads department or there's employees of the town, but I do think that you should expect, like somebody working in there 2 days a week. And that's not including if you are planning on doing the leaf blowing for mountain biking and the grooming of the trails in winter.
Gotcha. Sarah Shippey?
So forgive me if I'm either restating the obvious or going on a tangent. I've been able to pay attention to most of the meeting. Eric, you said that the developers of the trails and the disc golf were going to present you with recommendations for maintenance, correct?
Correct.
When we have those recommendations, it shouldn't be a huge lift to go through it and look at those things that would require professional or scheduled work and things that could be done by a trail day kind of a situation, and at the same time address the concept of how to deal with emergency situations or short-term situation. When we have the plan in like right now, we all have an idea of what it should be, but we have professionals that we've paid a fair amount of money to tell us what should be done. So when we have their recommendations in hand, that's the time to break down the plan into, it seems to me, 3 stages, which is trail day kind of work, scheduled routine professional maintenance, and emergent repair. And from there, we develop a plan.
Thank you, Sarah. Tommy, is your hand still up or did you raise it again?
Yes, I appreciate what Sarah's saying, and I agree with that. And I guess, I'm not a municipality, so I understand, it takes a lot more planning as a municipality and it's not as quick to move. But I think the only problem with that is, let's just say, I don't know when you'll get this recommendation, but let's just say it's at the end of May. And in that recommendation is that you will need, weekly maintenance of 1 or 2 people. Then you have to make that ask, and it's hard to find people in our community or organizations that don't have a full roster that's already planned out for them to come in and say, okay, we can pick this ask up in a week with no plan.
Yeah, so I don't have to wait until the end of May, right? Like I can reach out to Brooke tomorrow and ask him to get that to me sooner rather than later. So I will put that on my plate to reach out to my designers and developers to get me those recommendations sooner. And we can start formulating that plan as the snow begins to melt. Okay. Does that make everybody okay? Sarah, you had your hand again?
I was just going to say, we're still trying to design what we're going to do before we've had any recommendations from the people who professionally are the ones to tell us what we should be planning. So I understand we don't want to wait until the end of May. I don't think anybody was suggesting we wait until the end of May. I understand that, yes, we're dealing with a municipality, and that does sometimes mean things take a little bit longer, but the select board is responsible for the safeguarding of the public money being spent. And even if we were to hire an outside group to do it, we would still have to go through an RFP process. We would not just bequeath it to somebody because that's part of our responsibility. So we can have this conversation, we can go around for the next hour, but the reality is we still need a plan and we have professionals giving us a plan. Let's get that in hand and then start figuring out how we're going to break it apart.
Thank you, Sarah. Mike Garber?
Just a question. You said that there were funds put aside for trail maintenance.
Yep.
How much is in that fund right now and how much yearly is put into that fund?
I believe the number, don't quote me on this because I don't have the budget in front of me. It was either $12,000 or $15,000 a year.
And that starts this year or it's
Yep.
already in there for last year?
Already in there.
So there's 12 to 15,000 in this fund, and when does it get bequeathed another 12 to 15? Is that a yearly?
Yeah.
It's part of the budget, and I think we actually upped it this year, but I don't have it in front of me either.
So another 12 to 15 gets put in on May Day, whenever our town voting is?
Yeah, so that's literally just for maintenance on existing trails. That's not like, hey, we're gonna build another trail and that money comes out of there. We have a line item for Trails and Rec implementation where projects like this come out, that money comes out of that line item. So this line item is specifically for the maintenance of trails.
I understand 12 to
Okay.
15 is already in a fund for maintenance of trails.
Correct.
And 12 to 15,000 will be again put in May, correct? Upping that to 30,000 and then next year to 45 if it's not used, or no?
No.
No, it's that line item for the year. If we don't use that, it doesn't double up. But that being said, the economic development budget is very flexible as well. So if we got to a point where we were like, hey, we spent that maintenance money, it's not like, oh, we can't do any maintenance for the rest of the year. It just tells us like, that's more of a plan for that money as opposed to a dead set. This is exactly how much we have to spend on those things. We didn't have $125,000 in the budget this year to replace the bridge, but we made that happen. When we purchased Horace Hill, we didn't have that money in the budget to purchase Horace Hill, but you make that happen. That budget is flexible to a point. So, that line item is in there for maintenance as, we hope to spend this or less on maintenance. If we go through this year and find that we spend more, then that line item will be raised for the following year. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions, comments, concerns? All right. Well, with that, I will get ready to adjourn the meeting. Our next meeting will be for March 12th, if needed. And I have my marching orders. I will reach out to those groups, and I will reach out to Travis about the two, road related, scenarios that were brought up here tonight. Okay. Thank you all very much for coming. And, with that, I will adjourn the meeting. Or do I
You
need a
need-
motion?
Yep.
Okay. Can I have a motion to adjourn? Julia? All right. Thanks, Sarah seconds. Thank you guys. Have a great month.